You are live. Let's go. Welcome to the Shoy Show. It is Saturday, June 27th, 2026. You are alive. So that's good news. Okay. Every day above the ground, above earth, on earth, it's a good day, isn't it? Well, some people will say it's hell on earth. And you know what? You know what I have to say to those people? Lighten up. Because we only got so many days here. Our days are numbered. So be happy. And as we go through all of these topics, be happy, smile. What can I tell you? 36 years of age, living on this earth. I don't know much, but for what I do know is that the one thing that you can control in your life is your countenance. Sometimes life sucks. Sometimes you're happy. Sometimes you have money. Sometimes you don't. Sometimes people bother you. Sometimes they don't. But what you can affect is your emotion. And how do you lighten yourself up immediately? You smile. If you smile, everything changes, right? I could have a glum outlook on life, walking around with a frown. Or I can choose to say, you know what? Things aren't always peachy or rosy in this world. But you know what? I'm going to force myself to smile. And you know what? You usually laugh. You usually brighten your day. People like looking at you, coming into contact with you, because smiling just does your heart and your mind and your body good. All right, let's get into the first topic. Weed? What? You better not be smoking weed or I'm going to tell your mom and your dad. I don't segregate, okay? I'm going to tell your parents, you better not be smoking weed. I don't care if you're 50 years old. I'll tell your parents. You better not be smoking weed. Look, okay? I don't even really want to mention this, but there has to be some level of candor here. I smoked a lot in my life. Do I regret it? No. The only reason why I ever smoked in my life was because of camaraderie. That's something that my mother could never really understand. It's not that she can't comprehend it, but she could never really come to grasp it. I never sat there saying, hey, I want to smoke weed because I just want all my problems to go away. Maybe once or twice, but that really wasn't the point. I only ever smoked or drank because of the camaraderie, because of the people around me. Not that they were a bad influence. It was because I wanted to not necessarily fit in, but I wanted to just take part in the atmosphere, if you will, the ambiance. So that's the reason why I smoked. And I don't regret doing it because, again, it was part of the culture. It was part of going out, part of having fun. However, I think the most important question here, and the premise really here of this entire argument, and every time we come into contact with the argument over cannabis, weed, whatever you want to call it, would you advise our youth to smoke? I used to think that smoking was okay under certain pretexts. Like, I don't know, if you were going to do something creative, like sing or draw or write lyrics, something like that. I used to do comedy. Smoking actually opened up my imagination. However, we don't need the drug. And once you understand how horrific it affects your brain, your mind, your body, your physiology, we should all be putting weed away. We should be putting it to rest. So let's get into this topic, because there's a new science out, a new study out, that states right up front that cannabis is way more complicated than people think. I think so. Stephen Lenkenow has spent years studying how people use cannabis in everyday life. He is the director of Drexel University's Medical Cannabis Research Center. And as legalization has spread across America, he's watched the entire landscape change. Now, some of these numbers are staggering. Back in 2002, about 25 million Americans reported using cannabis in the previous year. Usually, we have to take these studies with a grain of salt. I do with most of them. However, I don't think people would necessarily lie on a survey like this. By 2023, that number had climbed to nearly 70 million. 70 million people are now smoking in the United States. Daily and near daily use has grown even faster, and adults over 35 are now one of the fastest growing groups of users. Wow, we have certainly changed our era. So researchers are now asking some pretty simple questions. One of them is, how much is too much? And surprisingly, the newest science keeps coming back to three variables. How often do you use it? How young were you when you started? And how strong is the product? I remember reading one study that said that once you smoke anything, weed or cigarettes, and by the way, I remind the audience and everyone, and I like to remind my friends all the time as well, once you smoke, man, you have like a 50% chance of getting cancer. You're 50% more likely to get like lung cancer. I mean, are you serious? And there's plenty of these studies that will vary the percentages, that will say it's lung cancer or any type of cancer. But I mean, those numbers are staggering. And of course, we've all heard the anecdotes and the examples thrown out there. Well, my grandfather, he's been smoking and he's 95 years old and he's still kicking. Yes, of course there are anomalies, but we need not pay attention to those. And God bless those people. Of course, there needs to be balance here, right? We can't just say don't have any fun. Do we need drugs and alcohol to have fun in life? Certainly not. We do not need drugs and alcohol. But sometimes you can have it. You can have it as much as you want. It's up to you. We all have our own agency. But I remind the audience, smoking is smoking. You smoke weed, you smoke cigarettes, it's the same type of smoking. There is literally no difference. It's just what you are smoking. So the three questions that are in any study such as this one are, how often do you use it? How young were you when you started? And how strong is the product? Now, here are the 7 takeaways from this latest research article. Number 1, today's marijuana is nothing like your parents' marijuana. I'm 36 years old. When I started smoking weed here in New York City, there was Dro, Kush, and Haze. That's like the only 3 strains of weed that I could ever recall. Oh, you got that Dro, that high Dro, you got that Dro. Oh, this Dro is fire though. All right, yo, you got that Kush, yo, this Kush is fire though, fire. Okay, and that's it. And just depending on what your drug dealer or your friend, I used to buy from all my friends just to support them, support the community. Depending on how much they said fire, you would believe them more, right? Oh, this shit is fire, they really sold it. And then, usually it was fire. Usually it was really good weed. However, I will tell you, and I was smoking weed like in 2005. I smoked weed for like 20 years, but more than 20 years. But that was like in the early 2000s. That weed was like, you would smoke and just have a good time. It's not like the weed of today. So I'll just tell you from my personal experience. Now, in the 1970s, THC levels were often in the low single digits, 5%, 6%, 3%, 2%. Today, many products exceed 20%. That's how potent it is. And concentrates and vape products can hit 70 to 90% THC. We're not even talking about the same substance anymore. What is going on here? Why do you need that high a concentration? And don't sit here and tell me it's going to, quell anxiety, or it helps in this, aspect or this facet of your life. If it does, great. Again, you have agency. You can smoke if you want to. You can do whatever you want. You can go put a turn up your butt and do whatever you want. Okay? Now, the second point in this article is that the mental health benefits may be more limited than many people believe. Recent reviews found weak evidence supporting cannabis as a treatment for anxiety, depression, PTSD, ADHD, and bipolar disorder. Again, by all means, if you have PTSD and when you smoke weed, it alleviates you of many of the symptoms that you have. Nobody's telling you not to smoke weed. I never told anyone, well, maybe I told my loved ones like, hey, maybe it's time to stop smoking, right? You want to be careful, and you want to, we tread some lines here when we tell our loved ones what they should or should not do. I'm not telling anyone how to live their life, but I smoked weed for the majority of my life. And again, I don't have any regrets, but I think that the central question that we have to come to here is, and look, I'm going to die and we're all going to die, right? Would I want to pass that down to future generations, my children, my friends' children, my family's children, like, my family, my sister's niece, my sister's daughter, my niece. If we're going to pass down any intelligence or any information from one generation to the next, what should we be passing down? I don't think we should say this is the worst thing in the world. We shouldn't lie to the future generations, but here's the evidence, right? The evidence is telling you that it's really not helping any of these brain disorders. It doesn't help anxiety. It doesn't help depression. And as a matter of fact, I'll tell you that it actually exacerbated my anxiety and my depression. I'd smoke and I'd go into the abyss when I smoked. So anybody that has anxiety or depression, I don't advise them to smoke weed. I don't advise anybody on anything anyway, but I would tell them, hey, smile and go do things and, put yourself to study and read and, just try to live an enriching life. The last thing we need to do, what shocks me so much about drugs, not to go off on a tangent here, but it's the Shoy show, but God has given us, whether you believe in God or not, you have been given agency, free will, an imagination that knows no bounds. We have been given the gift of life, an amazing spectacle that is inexplicable even by science. I'll give the scientists of this earth, I'll give them eons, I'll give them lifetimes, I'll give them millions of years. They cannot possibly explain the magnificence that is the human brain. And what befuddles me is that although we understand that we have something so spectacular in the form of our brains and bodies, what we do is try to remain insensitive to life's fissures, if you will, to life's motions and emotions, to life's flavor. We try to become shells of ourselves. We try to go into a docile state with drugs and alcohol. Why? When you have been given the gift of life, when everybody in the ground is jealous and envious of you that is breathing, that is alive, how dare you be anxious? How dare you be depressed? How dare you hurt yourself and become withdrawn with drugs and alcohol? How dare you put a cap on your imagination, put a cap on your brain? How dare you reduce your capacity to think? Damn. That's what drugs and alcohol does to us, right? We have to numb ourselves. That's what we're doing. And don't say that the government gave it to us or this person enables it or whatever. We all have free agency and free will, right? Agency and free will. You can do whatever you want. The fact that we resort to drugs and alcohol because sometimes we can't take what's going on up here, it's understandable. I'm not blaming anybody. I'm just talking about the conundrum that is essentially life, right? I mean, isn't that, have you ever stopped to think about that? I think about it all the time, all the time. And I remember the first time I thought about it was when I was an adolescent, when I was a teen. And I was like, damn, I was like, how great. I was like, do adults actually do that? And I was drinking and smoking at that time, but I was like, yeah, I never really thought about that. You know, it's like we're amazing creatures. We walk on two legs, we have arms and 10 fingers and 10 toes. We have emotions that can't be explained. We can literally do or think anything that we could possibly conjure up. We are amazing creatures. Yet we use drugs and alcohol to numb ourselves, to essentially put this shade in front of us, because sometimes it's too much to handle, too hot to handle is life. It's truly shocking, because left to our own devices, with no obstacles in front of us, we can do and accomplish and achieve anything we put our minds to. Yet we use drugs and alcohol to essentially incapacitate our own abilities. It's shocking to me. Now it's about time I switch the damn picture, right? You're tired of looking at that brain. So I will. So again, researchers say the risks often outweigh the proven benefits for many psychiatric conditions. So you may think, yeah, I'm going to smoke this weed because I got ADHD, I got bipolar disorder. Those benefits are far and few between. There is weak evidence to support that cannabis as a treatment for anxiety, depression, any of these mental disorders, or this nervousness, it isn't proven to actually aid any of those issues. What I think the weed does is it separates us from reality for such a short time that we forget about the issue altogether for that certain time. And you know what would happen to me? After the THC would wear off, I would fall into a deeper hole. That's what drugs and alcohol usually does for you. The third point in the article was that age changes everything. Moderate use among middle-aged and older adults may not have the severe cognitive impact scientists once feared. Some studies found little measurable decline among adults using lower potency products in moderation. So that's actually a positive. So moderate use among middle-aged and older adults does not have as severe a consequence as far as cognitive impacts as we may have thought. Now, what do you think? I have a couple of my friends that say, weed doesn't damage the brain, it doesn't hurt it. It releases endorphins. Endorphins that would not have otherwise been released. And it does a whole bunch of other shit to your brain, right? That's why you feel the way you do when you smoke or when you use cannabis. Do you not think that your brain is not being put in overdrive? That's what these drugs do. I mean, I don't need to read a study. I don't need to look at the science to know that, hey, if I smoke and my brain feels like this, if I constantly do it, right, everything in moderation, if I constantly do it, it's probably not good for my health. Oh, by the way, I'm smoking. So whether you want to say that this doesn't impact older adults as much as we once may have feared, okay, great. I guess that's a positive with weed. Maybe that's because the brain is fully developed, into our mid-30s, right? Some studies found little measurable decline among adults using lower potency products in moderation. So what they're saying here is that once you become of age, maybe after 25, when the brain essentially is developed, maybe the weed has less of a severe impact Or maybe the weed has less of a severe impact on your brain. Okay, great. But do you think it has no impact? Again, let's remove the science out of all of this. Do you think weed affects you negatively or positively? Positively, because you probably like the short-term effects of weed. Okay, great. What else do you have? Create a T-chart here, positives and negatives. What else do you have that weed helps you positively? Makes me feel good, maybe takes away my nervousness, and anxiety, even though this report isn't saying so. It's saying that, that is largely overstated. It doesn't help PTSD, it doesn't help anxiety, it doesn't help depression, ADHD, bipolar disorder, but whatever. Let's say it does help any of those ailments. Okay, those are your positives. And by the way, you may only have one or two or three of those. So we could just only list 2-3 things that's positive. What about the negative side effects of smoking marijuana? It's certainly doing something to your brain. It's fucking it up. I don't care. I don't need to read anything to know that it's fucking it up. Drugs and alcohol fuck up your brain and your body. Full stop. There ain't nothing else. Do so at your own risk. No one's saying you can't smoke. No one's saying you can't drink. But there are consequences, right? And I think any normal human being, anybody with a brain, knows that there are negative consequences here. It's going to fuck up your overall physiology, brain and body, and the connectedness between. It's going to get fucked up. Number two, I don't think anybody would question that your memory is going to go. Most people don't have a great memory that smoke a lot of fucking weed. Again, full stop. Number three, you're smoking, so you're hurting your lungs and you're hurting a whole bunch of other shit. Number four, inflammation. I mean, come on. Weed is far worse for you than it is good. And if you think that's cliche or obvious, it's not, y'all. And even if it is, I would agree that it is. It still needs to be said out loud over and over again. Because again, going back to this report, over 70 million people in the United States smoke weed. There's 267 million adults. So, damn near 30% of the country smokes weed. That's crazy. These are brain scans when you do smoke. What do you think happens? I've seen so many brain scans of people on drugs. What do you think happens when you take drugs? You're releasing those endorphins, and then you can see the pressure, the actual pressure on your brain. You think that's healthy for your brain? It's going into overdrive. Come on, y'all. Listen, I'm not saying don't smoke. I'm saying don't lie to yourself. Understand there are negative implications here. Not just implications, there are negative implications for smoking weed. Okay, the fourth point in this study is that teenagers remain the group researchers worry about most. Study after study continues to link heavy adolescent use with lower academic performance, altered brain development, and higher risks of future psychiatric disorders. The younger the brain, the bigger concern. Is that surprising to anybody? So they looked at a variety of studies. They looked at the science, they looked at the data, and they said that collectively, it's linked to lower academic performance, meaning that if you smoke weed as a teenager, you have lower grades, you have altered brain development, meaning that you're not going to develop your brain on the right course, and you have a higher risk of future psychiatric disorder, like the PTSD, bipolar disorder, ADHD. The younger the brain, again, our brains stop developing roughly around 25 years old. Why would you take anything that's going to take you off course? The fifth point here is that some people may experience a cognitive rebound after quitting. Researchers are finding that memory and attention problems can improve after sustained abstinence, particularly for people who began using later in life rather than during adolescence. Makes sense to me. Oh, that's a big one. So if you smoked weed when you were of age, let's say you were 30 years old, so you started a little late in life and you started smoking weed, if you quit, you can see an uptick, you can see an improvement in your memory and attention. That's awesome. But if you were an adolescent when you started and you continued use through your 20s, your 30s, you won't see as big of an improvement. And that's because you did permanent damage, right? Your brain wasn't fully developed. Look at me. Look at how messed up I am because I started smoking in my teens like a dumbass. The sixth point here is that potency matters, and it matters a lot. Heavy use of high THC products has been linked to increased paranoia, psychotic symptoms, and disruptions in how the brain processes reality, especially among people who are already vulnerable. Wow. And I'll tell you right now, and I've actually shared this with some of my closest friends, my confidants. There are times where I smoke and I'm just like, what the fuck is real, man? And I literally like lost sense of reality. Not that I was going to go do something crazy, but I was like, sometimes I would just be like, I would question where I was, what I was doing, who I was. And sometimes you can have those questions while you're sober. I ask those questions of life all the time. But high THC products, which you should be watching out for. If you're smoking weed, I would tell you to actually lower the THC. I don't know what I smoke. You know, when I used to smoke, I would just get whatever. But again, THC in the 1970s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, we were smoking stuff in the single digits. Now, potency has reached 20%. 20% concentration of THC, 70% in these vape products. Why do you need that shit? Why do you need that? So you could be zooted? So you could just be out of this fucking world? Do you not want to use your brain? Because you can't use your brain when you smoke like that. You essentially become docile. You become useless. I want to go to another planet, bro. Listen, I said all these things when I was younger. I mean, but yeah, increased paranoia, psychotic symptoms, yeah. Disruptions in how the brain processes reality, absolutely. I've experienced all these things with these highly potent THC products, which are bullshit. I don't even like smoking them. They just make me paranoid. When I used to smoke in the early 2000s, I was laughing with my friends. It was a joyous occasion. Now I'm like, oh shit, what's going on over here? Like, I just get paranoid. So try to find, if you are still going to smoke, I don't advise it, of course, but if you are still going to smoke, at least do it with a lower THC product. That's what this sixth point is saying. And the seventh point, which is the last point, is that the future of cannabis research isn't about asking whether weed is good or bad. It's about asking better questions. How often are you using it? How young did you start or should you start? And how strong is it? What is the potency? Because a 45-year-old taking a low-dose edible once a week is completely different from a teenager using concentrated THC products every day. And that's what's unfortunately going on today. And again, I want you to focus on the central question here. It's not just that weed is bad, which goes back to this report, which was an excellent report. What do you want our future generations? Like, again, y'all, we're all going to die. I'm going to die. You're going to die. We're all going to die. But what we say and do matters. What do you want future generations to take away from the idea of smoking? Should we just say, yeah, it's all good and it's fine. You'll be fine. I mean, you could say that. That's okay too. I'm not going to just say, hey, this is the worst thing in the world. No, I don't want to lie to our children. But what I would say is, look, your brain isn't fully developed until like 25 years old. maybe a little older than that, I would wait. And if you are ever going to smoke, I think you should question the potency. So A, do not smoke before 25. B, look at the potency. And if you can't get a read on the potency, maybe try a little, but then just don't smoke anymore. See how you feel after a few minutes. And C, don't do it often. Because again, looking at this picture, you put your brain in overdrive. There are heat, like you actually see your brain looks like a heat map. Do not sit there and say that weed has no impact on the brain. It absolutely does. Every study will tell you that. Memory, attention. You may be using it for one thing. For the people that are just using it to laugh, whatever, I mean, party, do your thing. But that should be far and few between. It shouldn't be daily use. It just shouldn't. And that's just a rule, unfortunately. Should you drink alcohol every day? Oh, it's not alcohol. It doesn't matter. It's smoking. Should you smoke every day? You're still smoking. Even if you took edibles every day, it should still be far and few between because the THC is doing something to your brain. It is hurting your brain. It is not helping your brain. And above all, again, I don't want to pass this down to future generations. So I would just say don't smoke. Don't smoke. Quit it. Kill it. Don't smoke. This new science, the synthesis of this entire article, these 7 points that we just mentioned, is saying that context is everything. Once you become an adult, even as a kid, we rebel when people tell us we can't have something. You got to understand that psychology. That's totally fine. Nobody's saying not to do it. But if I'm looking at the future generations here, this is not something that I want to pass down. That smoking weed is okay. That smoking weed is good for your brain. That smoking weed is fine to use on a daily basis. That levels of THC concentration above 10% should be all right to use. I don't want to pass that down. To me, those are lies. This shit is not good for you. So again, it was a great article. And yes, the context matters, but you should be asking yourself those questions. How often are you using it? How young did you start? I don't think we should be allowing under 25-year-olds. I don't even think that shit should be legal in the United States under 25 years old. Not 21, not 18, 25 years old. When the brain roughly stops developing. And how strong is it? Why the fuck are we selling 20%, 70% THC concentration products? Why? Why the fuck do people even need that? We got to ask these questions because I've already been through the ringer. A lot of people have. Again, over 70 million Americans are now smoking weed. You have free will. You have agency. You could do whatever you want. I'm thinking about the next generation here. All right, next topic. Next topic. Next topic. Next topic. I know you guys want the topic. I'm going to get to it in a second, all right, bro? Just got to give me a second, bruh. Okay? Because I got to set shit up. You know what I'm saying? I got to get the banner up. My friend told me, oh, you need to put a banner up. I'm like, oh, you annoying. Telling me I got to do all this shit. All right, next topic. Sam Altman, always in the news. CEO of OpenAI. And of course, he was actually fired from OpenAI, if you didn't know that. And then he was brought back because he's such a genius, such a visionary. Now, Amazon MGM is owned by Jeff Bezos, right? At least he has a ton of influence. And they just dropped the movie Artificial. That's the name of the movie. Now, it was nearly finished. It was about Sam Altman. It was by Luca Gua- Guadagnino, and he's here up on screen, with Andrew Garfield playing Sam Altman. And before we say that, oh, there's a conflict of interest here, let's just understand what happened. This movie was about one of the most dramatic corporate stories in modern technology today. Sam Altman getting fired from OpenAI, the company melting down because it did. If you were paying attention to what happened here a couple years ago, I think you would say that. Employees were threatening to walk out, and then Altman coming back 5 days later like nothing happened. This happened in 5 days. The board ousted Sam Altman and then brought him back again because he was a visionary. Now that's the movie. That's the entire movie. And now Amazon MGM suddenly says, actually, this would be better served somewhere else. Okay, why? You just spent millions of dollars, 40 million, they're saying. And now you have to ask, why all of a sudden would you just drop a movie that you're nearly finished with? Why are you calling that a sunk cost? For what reason? Well, let's look at the details and specifically the timing. In February of 2026, Amazon announced a massive partnership with OpenAI. This included a $50 billion investment. So Amazon and OpenAI getting together. A few months later, the Amazon-owned movie studio backs away from a movie about the guy running OpenAI. And that's the story. Now, that's a very specific kind of awkward, isn't it? And again, maybe it's just business. Maybe the movie wasn't working. Maybe Amazon just didn't want the headache. I don't know. Why would it be a headache? But this is the same studio that just paid $40 million for a Melania documentary and released that theatrically. So they can absolutely be controversial. They can do political. They can also do high profile. But again, just look at the series of events. They were going to release the movie. I mean, they were creating it. It's damn near finished. All of a sudden, there's a $50 billion investment between OpenAI and Amazon. And they say, you know what? Well, this movie's going to make OpenAI and Sam Altman look bad. And you know what? We have a vested interest now. So why would we release a movie that would do that, right? Wouldn't it undermine our operations? So a nearly finished movie about Sam Altman and OpenAI, suddenly that's too complicated? Don't you think others are going to create movies, biopics about Sam Altman? He's certainly a controversial figure, one of the most interesting of our times, modern day. And this is all happening right as OpenAI is reportedly leaning toward delaying its IPO until 2027. If you remember, SpaceX, which just went public, OpenAI, Anthropic, those were the big three IPOs of the year. And they're aiming for a massive $1 trillion valuation, just like SpaceX. So maybe they thought, hey, you know what? Maybe this will challenge what we're doing here. Maybe, I don't know, for some reason, people will not want to invest in OpenAI. And do you know why the board ousted Sam Altman? They were saying that they weren't getting answers. They didn't believe that he was being honest with his answers as far as what the models were capable of doing, the vision of the company, where this was actually going to integrate with humanity. Now, a couple of directors on the board actually stepped down, and then they rehired Sam Altman. So something was going on over there. And by the way, guys, if you haven't watched interviews with Sam Altman, I like him, but it's extremely compelling to hear his answers on how this is going to fit in with humanity. If you saw, there was an interview with him and Tucker Carlson, and he asked him straight up, he's like, do you believe in God? And he's like, I do, but he didn't come off, and it doesn't matter, personally, it doesn't matter whether you're religious or not to me, but he just didn't come off like God was going to be central to all of this. And God doesn't. I'm not saying that he does, but what Tucker Carlson was actually getting at, and maybe we'll do a video on that topic specifically. We actually did in the past, but maybe we'll revive it again. He was asking, like, where do you believe that all of these models that will eventually feed into machines, right? They're going to feed into robots. Do you eventually, or do you ultimately think that they should have some type of moral compass, moral guide, a framework of sorts? And Sam Altman responded, yes, he did believe that. So then he was asking, well, if you're behind those models, could you tell me a little bit about your moral framework? And that's where the argument about God came into play. It's a very interesting conversation. And honestly, I wasn't really thrilled with what Sam Altman was saying, because he was kind of not saying much. If you read in the comments, all I was reading about was Antichrist, Antichrist. This is going to be hell on earth. The machines are going to kill us, right? And it's probably, a little too dramatic. But again, don't you think that the robots that we should be building that are ultimately going to serve us, don't you think that they should be embedded with some type of moral code? We don't know what the hell the robots are going to do one day. And I'm not a conspiracy theorist or anything like that. I'm not, saying that, we're going to have some type of scorched earth scenario by the robots. But it's coming. It is going to come. Like, we are going to have this super futuristic society one day. And these are the most powerful people in the world. Jensen Huang of NVIDIA, Sam Altman of OpenAI, Dario Amodei of Anthropic, Elon Musk, SpaceX, Starlink, Tesla, right? They are going to be creating all of these robots, all of the technology that we are going to use, whether we like it or not. Wouldn't you want them to not necessarily believe in God? I mean, I hope they do. I hope they believe that there's a higher power. I hope they believe that good and bad matter, whether you believe in God or not. Again, remove God out of the equation. I hope they believe in good versus bad, because bad matters. You may not think being good in this world matters, but if you're bad, that matters. So I don't know how you factor that into whether, a God is important or not. I do personally, because I believe in God, but I mean, pain and suffering matter, which is bad, right? You inflicting pain and suffering is bad. That's why, I mean, man, we could go down the rabbit hole here and talk about why I personally just, to me, God is undeniable. But again, it's not necessarily about God here in this equation. I'm like, hey man, like, where are the morals being factored in here? I mean, have you ever asked, like, morally, right? Do you believe that, homosexuality should be allowed? Should it be criminalized? Should they be outcast? Anybody that's being homosexual, right? Whatever your belief is, I'm not saying you're wrong or right. However, and that's not important here. The models, the LLMs, large language models that produce all of the information that we see here, via Google, Anthropic, Claude, ChatGPT with OpenAI, all of these models, and there are tons of models now. Don't you think that there should be some moral code in there? And right now, if you ask them about homosexuality, you're going to get varied responses. Some are going to say, hey, I can't really talk about that. It depends on the person, or it depends on the laws within that region. And then some say, hey, you should accept everyone for who they are. That's pretty much, that's like an edge case. Like that really is, one of the tougher conversations to have in the world, I believe. But again, it's not necessarily about that. When we talk about life and death, which is, of course, much more significant, I mean, these are the people that are leading the models, the thinking, the rationale that's being created ultimately in these systems, these processes, ultimately in the machines. Don't you want them to have some type of respect and reverence for human beings? So when this guy answers questions and he's just like, well, I grew up religious, I grew up Jewish, but, I'm not that religious. It's like, I don't know about that. I don't know how good I feel about those answers, Sam Altman. So, Why would someone kill the movie? Why did Amazon MGM kill the movie? Right? You got to ask yourself that question. And like, honestly, it's like Jeff Bezos, I'll tell you why. I mean, guys, come on. We got to put two and two together. I'll tell you why Amazon killed the movie. It's because it's about money. It always comes back down to money. They have a $50 billion partnership now, Amazon and OpenAI. And Amazon's about to release this movie about Sam Altman. It was a biopic about Sam Altman. And this guy, I'm not saying he's a devil worshiper, but, you know, he really hasn't answered many questions, honestly, or I don't believe he's so forthcoming. Or maybe he's just not that moral. I'm not sure. I don't think he's immoral. I think the guy, you know, he seems like a decent human being. And he's not the only one that's controlling these models, right? But look at what Dario Amodei of Anthropic did when he heard that the Pentagon was going to use Claude and Anthropic's, you know, models for autonomous weapons. He said, this has not been completely vetted, completely tested, and we're not comfortable in you doing that. So if you are going to be trying to automate weapons with our military, you cannot use our models. That to me is stepping up. That to me is saying, hey, you know, we have a moral responsibility here, not as CEOs, but for humanity. I mean, that's how powerful this technology is. You don't hear Sam Altman. You know what Sam Altman did after the Pentagon? Actually, the Pentagon is going to end up using Claude and Anthropic's models because you know what? They're that good. In case you didn't hear that story, which came out a few months ago, and they're actually challenging them because they put them on some lists that they can't be used with other government agencies, Anthropic that is, and now they're challenging them in court. But the Pentagon is going to end up using Anthropic's models. Again, because they're so effective. But do you know what happened that very same week? I mean, I think the next day after the news broke, guess who comes sweeping in? OpenAI. Ultimate opportunists. They come out of nowhere and they say, oh, well, you know what? If you're going to break your contracts, that's what Donald Trump, Pete Hegseth were saying in the Pentagon. If you're going to break your partnership with Anthropic, oh, well, we have models just the same. Why don't you use OpenAI? Let's get those government contracts. And they did. OpenAI stepped in. So now it looks like the government, who the hell knows what the government is doing, but now it looks like the government is paying both OpenAI and Anthropic. They have partnerships with both. They're utilizing both of their models. Again, Dario Amodei, I'm not saying that he's completely moral. I'm not saying that he's going to prevent the US government from using these models maliciously. But look at what his response was. It's like, whoa, 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 whoa. We're not comfortable with two things. He mentioned two things. Number one, the use of autonomous weapons with their models. And number two, mass surveillance programs. Isn't that something you're happy to hear? That Dario Amodei actually stepped up? That is not what you get with Sam Altman. And I've watched enough interviews with Sam Altman. I respect the guy because, again, this is amazing technology. We are living in like an amazing era here because what people saw with the internet being created, and I'm like an AOL baby, like I grew up in the 90s. So it's like seeing how the internet like came into existence, like became so prevalent, the World Wide Web. We're about to see that with machines, with robots. And it's cool to see the difference between, you know, pre and post that event. We're going to have flying cars one day. It's undeniable, in my opinion. We're going to have, I mean, we're going to, I believe that planes are going to be so much faster. We're going to damn near be teleporting around the world. I believe we're going to have castles built to the sky. And these are the minds, Elon Musk, Dario Amodei, Sam Altman, Jensen Huang. These are the powerful minds that are going to control this technology. If they don't have a good moral compass, I'm not comfortable with them leading the way. And this biopic, this movie, was about to tell us kind of the inside story as to why Sam Altman was removed as OpenAI CEO. You know, guys, if it all comes back down to money, which it always does, those directors on the boards of any boards of a Fortune 500 company, to say the least, how much do you think they're getting paid? They're being paid millions of dollars, these directors, and they have tremendous influence, and they have access to the stock. I mean, are you kidding me? And oh, by the way, because they're on the board of the directors, they can actually get other seats on other boards because people like those synergies, right? They like that. Hey, you're a director on this board. I'd like you to be a director on my board. So they get a plethora of other opportunities. 2 directors on the board were released after they fired Sam Altman. So for them to speak up and to say, listen, we just don't like what Sam Altman is saying about the future of humanity, about these models, about what they're building. He's concealing too much, essentially. And this biopic was going to reveal, I'm assuming, a lot of those conversations. Now they're going to kill it. I mean, guys, like, come on. Like, there's something going on over here. I'm not saying that this is definitely not going to be the only movie about Sam Altman. I'm sure many biopics are going to come out. There's already books written about the guy. But again, to kill something like this is saying, hey, we want to suppress this narrative for as long as we can. Maybe it gets released in the future after the partnership between Amazon and OpenAI materializes. Again, I'm not calling it a conflict of interest, but I'm just telling you, like, I mean, it sounds like something's up here. Why not release the movie? Clearly, it's painting Sam Altman in a bad light, and they're just trying to mitigate any risk with their partnership. So when the biggest tech companies own the cloud, own the platforms, own the studios, fund the AI companies, and shape the public narrative, who actually gets to tell the story? Are we even hearing the real story? This movie, Artificial, sounds like exactly the kind of movie we should see. We should know who Sam Altman is. I mean, he's leading the way, right? We should know as much as we can about these leaders and how they think. They are the ones shaping humanity. It's not about Sam Altman being good or bad. OpenAI is one of the most powerful companies on earth. The public deserves to understand how power actually works behind closed doors. The man was actually fired. He was fired. So when a movie like that disappears from the company that just invested billions into the subject of the movie, Sam Altman, yeah, that speaks volumes. That tells you that something sketchy is going on over here. All right, next topic. Yeah. Hold on, let me get it. One sec. Let me set it up. Let me set up the banner. Let me set it up. And before we get into this, right? It's like, first of all, let's look at Albania. Oh, let's look at Albania on the map. I mean, look at how beautiful Albania is. I mean, that's just amazing. Look at that water. And you'll hear it in one of the videos. They got water, they got beaches, they got beautiful cities, they got beautiful architecture. This is their flag. All right, it's pretty ominous flag, by the way. That flag looks a little scary. Looks like a skull and crossbones. But anyway, do they have the right to self-determination, to sovereignty? They do. That's why they are an independent nation. So why the hell is Jared Kushner always getting involved? Jared Kushner, why you always sticking your nose, your beak into shit? Nobody likes you over here. Nobody likes you, Jared. Okay? I'm tired of seeing your face everywhere. I'm just tired of it. Leave the Albanians alone. They clearly don't want you there. You are the son-in-law of the president of the United States, you're cutting real estate deals across the globe just because that's your daddy. How much money do you need? You're already a multi-millionaire. How much money do you need? Are you doing any philanthropy? I mean, like, what is wrong with this guy? You're sucking on your daddy's tit. That's what's going on over here. You're taking complete advantage of your positional power. You do realize, like, y'all, like, this is another thing that really pisses me off. You do realize that Jared Kushner, he's been employed by the United States. He's being paid. He's a special envoy. I mean, this man is running around the United States. You guys know this, right? United States Special Envoy for Peace. His net worth is $1 billion. We got this guy running around the world. He was speaking to the Iranians. He's been sent virtually all over the world on our behalf. He's spoken to the Chinese. He's spoken to the Russians. Why do we have this guy involved? Do you know why he's involved? He's at the center of everything. Do you know why? Because Donald Trump loves him and trusts him. He is married to Ivanka Trump. And many people are going to say, oh, well, if he's a good negotiator, he's not. You don't even know anything about this guy. Why do we trust him so much? We didn't fucking elect him. He hasn't gotten through, Senate committee hearing scrutiny. Yeah, he's building golf courses and luxury resorts all over the world. And this is what's happening in Albania. I mean, check this out, y'all. Like, this is insane. Albania's got what? Like 2.7 million people. And these protests have been going on for weeks. We're like a month in right now. Demonstrators are calling for the resignation of the entire government. And this is over anger for the proposed Kushner-Ivanka Trump development project. They're trying to take over this island that they have, which is called Sazan Island. It's extremely beautiful. It's untouched. People go there for vacations. People go there to see the wilderness, beaches. I mean, look at this. It's amazing. And they're going to build a luxury resort. And people say, no, this is a public good. Don't touch our shit. What right does he have? And what right does the president, the prime minister of Albania, Edi Rama, what right does he have to sell it to the Trumps? Look at how beautiful this is. People don't want to lose it. It is theirs. Could you imagine a piece of our land in the United States, maybe close to your state or within your state, wherever you're watching this? Could you imagine if somebody all of a sudden said, hey, we're going to sell it to this other country? Come on, y'all. And they're not against development. Albanians are not stupid. But they want to make sure that there's no corruption here. And this is them taking it into their own hands. They're like, fuck this. You guys aren't listening to us. We've been protesting for over a month. Millions of people. I mean, there's 2.7 million people over there. Apparently, there was a protest that had like hundreds of thousands of people. Millions of people have come out. Maybe the same people, but millions of people have come out over the last month. So this is them. This is them throwing containers over because they're like, you know what? You have all of this development here and we don't want you here and you're not listening to us. The hell with this project. We don't want to sell our land. And look at what you're making people do. And don't say that they don't have a right. Look at what you're making people do. You're making them step out. You might say, oh, these are professional protesters, blah, blah, blah. Again, these people are coming out and you're making this the central issue in their lives. They're not watching the World Cup. They're not sitting there enjoying time with friends and family. They're coming out here to protest because they don't agree with this shit. Again, Jared Kushner, Ivanka Trump, go away. This isn't just, oh, people don't want a hotel. You're building a luxury development on their land. And why? Because Edie Rama is saying that you can do so? Because the prime minister is just giving you the ability? Who owns the land? Who the fuck owns the land? Is it the governments or is it the people's? Albanians see this as a public good, historic, environmentally sensitive, and part of the country's identity. They don't want that development built. How much more do we need to say? Protesters are not saying stop the resort. They're saying that the entire government is corrupt because of this particular action. They're calling for Prime Minister Edi Rama to now resign, and they're saying Albania is not for sale. And you know what? You know what really scares me for the Albanian people? It's like, man, what if they send in the military? We've seen it done in every country in the world. What if they just send in the military? What are the people going to do then? They could just arrest everyone and say, no, we're going to build this. So then you just take this piece of land away from them. You think these people want to be out here? You think they want to protest? You think they want to yell? You think they want to waste their time away? This is because the government is corrupt. And you don't need to be corrupt. Again, I don't know how many times I'm going to say it about these leaders. Like, I'm so tired of saying it, because what bothers me the most is, like, these leaders are already rich. Our leaders are already so rich. They make millions and billions of dollars. They're given so many other opportunities once they leave office. Why do you have to be this corrupt? And if Jared Kushner sees that the people of Albania don't want this, why the fuck are you still pursuing the project?
Albania is not for sale.
Albania is not for sale.
We are here to protect our country. We want to build our future here. Albania is a place from God. We have everything. We have rivers, beaches, mountains, everything we can be. Rivers.
Guys, I'm going to just take it right there because, again, media outlets, people will say, oh, there's not 1 million people over there. And there's only 2.7 million people in Albania. And by the way, there's fucking 360 million people here in the United States. Sometimes when we have marches, they say, you know, President Trump will like to say, or other leaders will like to say, oh, those are paid protesters and there's not 1 million people over here. Lies, garbage. What is that photo right there? I've seen photos, many photos just like this of these types of events. That doesn't look like hundreds of thousands of people. How many people is that? How many freaking people is that? So let's not challenge the numbers here. These people have been protesting for over a month. And what I'm saying is, Jared Kushner, Ivanka Trump, why don't they just come out and say, we're not going to pursue the project? How evil and corrupt do you have to be? The people don't want it. They don't want to sell their land.
Beaches, mountains, everything we can be.
We are here to protect Albanian from the most corrupted government in Europe. We are pro-investments, but we are not to the corrupt government.
Albania is not.
Again, these people are pro-government. I mean, these people are pro-investment. They just don't want the corruption. Nobody wants to be treated unfair in life. That's actually when most people will either stop talking to you or get aggressive and violent. Nobody likes to be treated unfairly. This is unfair. Why does Jared Kushner, why does the Prime Minister, Edi Rama, why does he feel like he has the right to sell this land, Albanians' land, without invoking some type of referendum, some type of vote to ask the people whether they want the sale to go through or not? Of course, some people are saying this is an overreaction. It's just a development project. No. A country can want investment. A country can want tourism. A country can want jobs. But what happens when people actually believe the deal is being pushed through for foreign billionaires, elite investors, and political allies and insiders? The real story here is that ordinary citizens are being ignored. This isn't a real estate project. This isn't a real estate project. This is a political crisis created as an affront, because of an affront on their national sovereignty. It is their land. And when they're willing to go through with this type of project, I mean, what does that tell you about the government's willingness to just throw it in the face of the Albanian people? I mean, that tells you that the corruption really knows no bounds. They are selling Albania. Call it what it is. So the Kushner-Ivanka project that is Sazan Island, it may have been the spark, but the gasoline was already there. Edi Rama's government has been under fire for many years now. Now, I think personally that Jared and Ivanka should abandon the project altogether. Again, I mean, if people are in the streets yelling and telling you that they don't want this, what do? Do you fight back and say, hey, who actually owns this land? Who should profit from it? I mean, the other question, of course, is who approved it? What environmental studies were done? If I asked Jared Kushner and Ivanka Trump, and by the way, I mean, Donald Trump as a proxy, Donald Trump is involved in this. Donald Trump is such a genius when it comes to money. And I'm not saying, oh yeah, you could say yeah, he's been bankrupt, this and that. He's such a political genius, rather. Because that everybody in his sphere, which is virtually every person with some type of influence on this earth, like some type of major influence and money, everyone is sending kickbacks to Donald Trump in one form of another. You always got to follow the money. There is no way in hell that he's not going to benefit from this indirectly. It's just an impossibility, in my opinion. Oh yeah, I'm going to just go send Jared Kushner as a special envoy to talk to this guy and go over here to Turkey and go over here to Russia and go over here to Albania and go speak to the Iranians. And then all of a sudden, there's little deals that pop up all over the earth. Luxury development here, golf course there. Oh yeah, and Donald Trump is not going to benefit from it. Yeah, right. If I was super corrupt and in that position, what do you think would happen? If Donald Trump just gave you some type of privilege or political power and influence, yeah, I would go do whatever I'm going to do around the world. It's not like he's controlling everybody as a puppet. But you go do your thing, right? Let's say he just gave me some type of influence. He gave me some type of position on behalf of the United States. And I go do something around the world with, like, I don't know, Albania. Then all of a sudden I'm going to, make bank off of some deal like Jared Kushner is. You'd bet that I would be giving a kickback to the president. I would go back to the president and say, thank you, Mr. President. Thank you for everything that you did for me. Here's how you're going to benefit. And maybe you give him stock or some of the land or something. You got to give Donald Trump something. He's the only reason why you even have these opportunities around the world. So you got to think about, Donald Trump's already a multi-billionaire. But you got to think about how much more he's enriching himself, because not only are there deals that he's cutting, and he's also trading stocks, right? There were 3,700 reported trades in Q1 of this year alone, right? Anyway, you have all of these other people around that he's enabled, that he's given power to, and they're cutting deals everywhere, every which way, all over the world. You don't think they're giving Donald Trump his cut? Come on now. Come on. So what do you think Jared Kushner and Ivanka Trump should do? Do you think they should kill the project? I do. But guess what? Many of these people in these positions, they don't do that. They're probably just going to keep bulldozing, probably just going to keep, doing the development and hope the anger burns out, because it eventually does. If you ignore people, that's actually a tactic, and it's a proven one. It works. Of course, that's where this gets dangerous. Albania's government can say this is about modernization. They can defend this project as much as they want. They already said it, right? This brings jobs, tourism, international attention. You can make that argument. But people feel that their coastline is being carved up behind closed doors. You are selling one of the best pieces of land in Albania. Public access is going to be blocked because this is going to be a luxury resort. And this was protected land, right? And now all of a sudden, it becomes available once the right billionaire shows up. And I say right billionaire because it's got to be a billionaire that's willing to work within the lines, right? Or behind closed doors. So this isn't a tourism debate anymore. You heard that man say it, and others have said it as well. These people are interested in development. Of course, who doesn't want a prosperous nation, a prosperous state? Everyone does. These people are saying, you are selling our land without asking us. So now you have a legitimacy problem. And of course, Jared Kushner is not some random investor. He is Donald Trump's son-in-law. He was the senior White House advisor in the first term. He's a special envoy now. His investment firm has already drawn scrutiny over billions in foreign-backed capital. He was tied to major development plans in Serbia, in Russia. So when Albanians see his name attached to a massive coastal project, they're not looking at it as a normal hotel deal. They're looking at the power. They're looking at the foreign influence. Is the Albanian government working for the public or for people with direct political access to the most powerful family in America, the Trumps? I mean, and what do you think? I mean, do you think this is fair? I wouldn't want to sell our land. I don't know. Let's say Roosevelt Island in New York City was just going to be sold to anyone, for that matter. It could be Jared Kushner and Ivanka Trump, and they're American. I wouldn't be happy with that. I'd be like, what the fuck, man? It's our land. It's our land. What gives you the right? And again, do you think people want to be out there protesting? That's the last thing anybody wants to do. These people are in fear. I don't even know. I mean, I'm sure Edi Rama is the prime minister of Albania. You bet your ass, obviously he's talking to Ivanka Trump and Jared Kushner. He's cutting the deal with them. Therefore, you have to assume that he's also, I mean, he's the prime minister anyway, so you have to assume that he's also talking to Donald Trump, and Donald Trump is going to profit off of this somehow indirectly. I'm not saying anything far-fetched here. So it's like, okay, at what point do they send in the military? Man, what a travesty that would be. Is there no freedom of speech? Do we not own our countries? Like, do we not own our governments? Why the fuck do we pay taxes? I can almost bet it's going to happen. It's either that or they're probably going to ignore them. Do you think Trump is losing sleep over this? That Albanians are protesting his son-in-law's project? Probably not. But this is the exact collision happening all over the world right now. Local people versus global capital. Public land versus private luxury. And once it becomes private, nobody has access. It's limited. It's only for the rich. There is a difference between investment and exploitation. So now, what does the government do? Do they listen? Do they stop the project and at least investigate? I mean, how long do these people have to voice their concerns? 4 weeks already, over a month. Or maybe they crack down harder. These people believe right now that their country is being sold out from underneath them. They have put up fences, private security. That's only making it worse. Police pressure, only making it worse. The smart move, of course, would be transparency. Pause the project, disclose the investors, settle the land claims, speak to the public, publish the environmental review that you said that you did, and let Albanians actually decide what kind of country they want to build. Why not just have a referendum? You could easily put out a vote tomorrow and allow them to go to the polls and let Albanians have their say. They're already out in droves. They're already out in numbers. People are screaming Albania is not for sale. The government's answer is what? Too bad. We don't give a shit. Keep protesting. Protest until you lose your voices. Until you're so tired and you go home and you forget about this. This is not about the land. It's not about Jared Kushner. It is about whether Albanians actually have a say in their own country, Albania. And to see that the United States, my country, our country, is in the middle of all of this, it's like, damn, man. Why do we always have to be the fucking problem here? All right. Thank you for watching. Till next time.